We're live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talking Chickens number 40, the M&M Exhibition Poultry, Mike and Matt. And if you watch episode 39 and think we look like we're in the same clothes, we
We
are.
are.
We are. Today we have Ken, Miss Kimmon Jr.
That's
We're
correct.
going to talk a lot of call ducks and a few other things. Ken's a master breeder of call ducks. If you watched April, she gave us a little bit. Ken's going to give us a little bit more on them. We're sponsored by Rozier Poultry Supply and Eagle Nest Hatchery. We're doing this on Thanksgiving Eve. You won't see it on Thanksgiving Eve, or on Thanks. It'll be after Thanksgiving. Sorry, when we'll put this up. But I'm going to be gone, so we said we do the proverbial uh, two birds, one stone. You're the birds, Ken. We're not killing you. We're just going to ask some questions, but you just relax. So,
Yep.
but anyway, welcome. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving by the time you see this. It's cold, it's miserable, and the wind's blowing at 4,228 knots or something stupid like that out. And I just heard my wife put the dogs out and say, it is absolutely horrible out there. So there you go.
It'll blow your hat off. I know that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it can't mess my hair up too bad, but it can mess my hats
Yeah,
up. And I got a
mine
brand
neither.
new hat. As you can see, this is the new Breeders' Cup cap.
All right.
And if I just spaced out again. It's getting late and I'm tired. Uh, hmm, I'll think of it. But I have your Breeders' Cup hat here, and when I see you this spring, I will bring you your hat. Who am I trying to think of? Langshanks, Virginia, or
Oh,
West
Tim
Virginia.
Ballinger. Yeah, Tim
Timmy,
Ballinger.
Tim Ballinger.
geez, oh, I've got you a bag and a hat, Tim. So I'll get them to you. I don't know where I'll see you, but I'll get them to you. So I brought them back on the plane. Uh, didn't cost me nothing extra because I shoved them in the bag.
We'll probably
So
see him in North Carolina.
yeah, we might see you there. So you'll get your hat in January if you want to come show with us where we're judging. If not,
He may
maybe
be in
in
a knock.
February. Oh yeah, yeah. Tim, send me a message or give me a Knoxville so I can bring this damn hat. All right, now Ken. April filled us in on how you got to Indiana. Tell us about your call ducks. What got you interested in them? What you got? Just lead us on.
Well, we got started in the poultry because earlier in our life, April and I had done rabbits for years. So we showed rabbits for years and we enjoyed that. And then once all three, I can see both of you right now, and then I can see me.
I'm
Huh,
gonna.
I can hear you real well. I could. Now you're back.
Am I back now?
Yeah, I don't have any. You're back, but no video.
Okay, I got my video on and I can see me. I can see you too. Well, we can keep on going. They don't need to see me.
All right, we'll just pick up where you are with the.
Okay.
I'll drop back to where you.
Okay, so we were trying to find something that we could do as a family, and April didn't really like the rabbit hair anymore, so she decided on poultry. And we lived down in Maryland. There was a little poultry club, the Susquehanna Poultry Club, and Kay St. Amour was part of that. So I don't know if you remember Kay St. Amour, but
Remember real
anyhow,
well.
we got involved with that club, and we picked up, I believe it was some Silver Lace Wyandottes for my son. He was about 5 years old, and that got our poultry hobby started. And then I remember we got a White Rock for my son, and he loved that thing. And we took it to the show, and it was nothing special, but I think it was the only one there, so he got a ribbon on it. So somehow I don't remember. April picked up some call ducks from somebody, and they were nothing special. And I'm not sure if she told this story, but our call duck adventure got started with a drowned duck. So Brody had these ducks, and we were going to take it to the show. And April was going to go out with her mom, so she said, "You got to give the duck a bath." So I stuck him in a stock tank and went off in the yard. Next thing I hear, my son screaming and crying, "Reggie's dead!" And I go over, he's on the bottom. So everybody, a duck can drown. So I got
Yes.
him out, and I actually got him back to life. And the next day was the show, so we went to the show. Obviously, the duck, he was still alive. He's in the bathtub. Well, by the time we got home, that duck was dead. So he was just distraught. So about a month later, they went to, I think it was the Maryland show, and Tim Gladhill had some white calls there.
Yep.
So she ended up getting him a pair of white calls from Tim Gladhill, and got the male conditioned up. And then my son, he went on a tear with that little duck, and he won and won and won with that duck. And so that kind of got the interest sparked in call ducks. And but he only had the one pair, so we started going to more shows. And so I'd always try to get really good stock from the best breeders I could get it. So at the time, Charlie Hodem was the
Oh
really
yeah.
big white call duck breeder. So we got in touch with Charlie, and we ended up getting a pair of ducks from Charlie. And so he had Reggie. Well, it was Reggie too. Uh, Reggie was the first duck that drowned, and we actually still have Reggie stuffed here at the house. I had a guy at work did taxidermy. He looks like a wild mallard. But anyhow, so he had Reggie too, and then he had Charlie. So he had those ducks, and he was love those little ducks. That's what got us started in call ducks, and couldn't figure out how to breed the things. It was just a nightmare trying to breed them for about 3 years. I think I hatched one duck, and none of them lived. So it was just terrible. And I was about ready to call it quits on those things. And then I finally talked to Art Longer, and he gave me some really good tips on hatching call ducks. And that was the advice that I needed to learn how to hatch call ducks. So then from there, we started to learn how to hatch call ducks. And Brody was still showing the whites. And then I kind of got the bug to start showing ducks. So I ended up getting some grays from Art. So I started off with some grays from Art Longren. And that's basically how our call duck uh, got our venture got started. And like a lot of kids, when my son got a little bit older, he got more interested in sports. So it ended up April and I kind of just took over the whole duck and poultry hobby. And when he got out of high school, then we really started hitting it kind of hard, and just kept on breeding and breeding and breeding, and um, developing a line. And that's basically how we got started with the call ducks.
Good
Cool.
deal. What's some tips for people just starting with them? So I think
Um,
almost at every show, everybody's infatuated with them and they get starting out. Give them some tips on how to avoid some of the pitfalls.
yeah, I think one of the pitfalls is there's a lot of people with call ducks out there. A lot of people with call ducks. And a lot of people are good at conditioning call ducks, but there's a few lines um, out there that are really the lines that are winning. And the thing I'll tell everybody, and I know you've talked about people starting on third base, you can get really good birds out there, but to really develop them into a good line, you have to learn how to breed them, and you won't progress them unless you do breed them. You can't just buy buy them and improve them. You have to breed them. And I always say, and this is kind of goes back to, we've done rabbits, we've done racing pigeons, and you really need to learn how to breed and start with a line. And like I said, we went out and got birds from really good lines. I mean, they were well established breeders who we got them from. And I just bred and bred and bred. I bred with what I had, and I worked on getting a body on them. And then I think it was uh, several years before we brought anything in. I just bred and bred out of the birds I had, line bred, inbred. And when it come a time for a piece I needed to fix, then I went out and looked for something to bring in. So I would tell anybody, get you a good couple pairs and work with them and breed out of them. Learn how to breed, and that's the way you'll make progress.
think this
You're
is definitely a breed where, and I guess a species where you need the two showbirds are probably your worst deal. So you need to go to that breeder and ask them for some breeding birds and not just showbirds because, in some things we can do that. But my experience with call ducks is no, I want to get a pair that will actually breed. I guess is my solution to it is sometimes we're looking for just that show winner, but in call ducks, definitely it's more important to get the ones that will reproduce.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I mean when you get to a certain point, you're breeding out what's winning at shows. But yeah, you're right. Some birds are not going to breed. You got to kind of match them up on size. Like you can get a male that's too small and can't breed a bigger female. I know Lou Horton always talked about that. But what you really need to do is get birds that kind of complement each other and fix the faults on them. And I think a lot of people. Um, Make the mistake of buying a name and not the bird. And you have to be really careful with that. You have to look at the bird, you have to look at the bird's qualities. And they look a lot alike. I mean, when you walk down a aisle of white calls, if you don't really know what you're looking for, everybody thinks they all look the same, but there's a lot of differences. Um, I prefer ducks that are nice and level. I want ducks that are real wide and ducks that are real deep. I tell a lot of people I love talking about call ducks and I love showing people what they're looking for. And you need to kind of stand back and look at the underline on the duck because that underline is just as important as the top line on that duck. And
Yep.
so many people get stuck from the neck up, and in call ducks that's a bad thing, is to get stuck from that neck up because that can just blind you to the whole lot of things that are wrong with the duck. I see
One
a lot
thing
of
we
duck.
always think Ed, is that it's probably the toughest class of anything to judge, and not because you don't have the knowledge of them and all that, is they're very temperamental on where they're at. And
Yeah,
if you're right up on top of them, a call duck will. I mean, if I like to stand back and look at them like you just said, because then I can see the total picture. Let the duck settle down. I can see its top line, its underline, the head, and if I'm careful, I can look over top of them without getting them all spooked. But if you go down through that aisle and get them all stirred up, they all look like crap. And it's definitely a breed in a species that we need to let settle down some and not be in a big hurry. Um, and I think that's a lot of the judging problems is people get too big of a hurry going down through there. I've went two rows over and looked at them, and you get those two or three in your mind, and when they're settled down, and then when you get over there and you get them stirred up, kind of where they are. It's a really tough one to do in a real narrow aisle with not a much room to get back and look at them. That's why I like them single decked and I like them in wide aisles. It makes it a lot easier in my
yeah,
mind.
yeah. It does. It's definitely as soon as they get startled, they don't look as good. And that's another thing I tell a lot of people is if you can coop in the night before on call ducks, chickens are totally different. You want chickens maybe a little animated to show off a little more. Call ducks, they need to get time to settle down. And if they're not used to showing and used to settling down, worst thing you can do is pop in late on the morning of judging, throw them in the cage. You almost doom yourself when you do that.
Oh yeah, they see strange ducks and they go crazy.
Yeah, yeah, they do not do well. And then the other thing, and I know it doesn't always work out this way, but it seems like particularly white calls. I know Luke Cunningham always says this is they get lazy is the best to judge them early in the morning. That seems to be the case, but everybody wants their breed to get judged first. So fortunately, usually call ducks are pretty big classes, so they do get judged early but not always. But no, I like for them to be settled down. And like you said, when you're judging them, you need to go down, look at them from afar,
Yep.
and pick out the ones that you think are going to be the ones, and then kind of narrow it down to them. If not, you can get lost in a big class of whites.
It's not hard to do, and I've done some big ones. I know Mike has as well, and And it's a tough one to teach apprentices because they're all scared. Number one, they're all scared to death of them because it's always a very competitive class, and you get 25 or 30 white old drakes in there, and you, like you said, they all look alike for a while, and then you have to have that system to get them weeded out. And I kind of like to do that. I like to stand back, mark the tags of the ones I like, and then, if I have to handle them the first whatever, I go in there and do that. Then I walk away for a little bit and let them settle back down. You just have to take your time with them. It's not something you can rush and do a good job at, in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big stickler on ducks being level though. I do
Yep.
not like a duck that is not level. So for anybody that has them, if your ducks aren't standing level, then they probably need to go because I don't think that's something you can fix. I mean, not easily, but level's really really important.
And that's usually the first thing you see when you got a whole pile of them is the ones that always are on station. I call it station, kind of like just like a modern, but they're in the position they need to be and they don't deviate from that too much. So that's
Yeah,
that's not something you can train. That's something you breed.
yeah, it has to be bred in them, and that comes to the balance on them. So if they're nice and balanced, they're going to come right in the station, and you're going to see it right away. It's not something that can be trained into them, and then they will settle down pretty quickly. I mean, I don't particularly cage train at home. I don't have time for it, so I'll just usually bring them to shows. We show at a lot of shows, so the ones I want to get cage trained, they come to a show and they get trained early in the spring, and usually after a couple shows, they get it and they settle down. Rarely do I have one that never settles down. But as far as showing, that's kind of in breeding. Like I said again, it's really important that you kind of get a line or get something and work with what you have. You'll be amazed at what progress you can make if you just keep on working with what you have because you'll if they're out of good birds, you'll start pulling those traits out of them. I tell everybody, if you, this is my theory, and I don't know how everybody feels on this, but when you raise a number of birds out of a pair of birds, you're going to get a small percentage that are going to be pretty good. Then you're going to get a little bit more that are going to be okay, and then you're going to get a lot of crap out of them. So you have to try to raise decent numbers out of them to get a couple good ones. And I'm
That's the
lucky
big
if I raise 100 ducks in a year, by the end of the year, I'll be lucky if I kept 10 would be a high number um, to actually keep. Um, but really, you're just going to get maybe one or two, maybe three really good ones, and then the rest of them are going to be just average at best.
and this is definitely a species and breed and variety, whatever you want to call it, where outcross is almost like you said, you might go look for something, but be very careful when you do that because I've seen more than one guy go pick up another duck from somebody else and just mess up his whole situation. So if you bring something in, you want to test mate it and keep that separate because it may work and 9 times out of 10 it might not.
Yeah, and I've always liked to bring a male in. That's just been always how I've done it. I know other people maybe want to bring a female in, but I like bringing a male in for whatever I want to fix. And my rationale for bringing a bird in is if there's a point, either A, I need to fix something, or something's getting stale in the line. Like a classic example are pastels. My pastels right now, I desperately need to bring some stuff in because they're really tightly bred. And so when you get to a point where you have a problem, you got to bring something in. Um, but that's my theory on everything.
Ken, let me ask you something. It's in my mind. I don't know if it's right or not, which I don't know what's right in my mind half the time. But I think that a lot of call ducks, uh, you'll win champion bantam duck on, someone will. And when they bring that call duck up to champion row and it's standing beside all those chickens, very rarely do they ever show.
Ye-
They don't look like they look back at it back in the eye. And you think that maybe if someone had some really, and of course, if you keep showing and you show a lot like you, they probably get used to it. But would it help to take those ducks out every now and then and put them in a bantam cage or a large straw cage next to some chickens so they kind of get used to things? What do you think about that?
It probably would. It probably would help. I'd prefer they didn't bring them up there, to be honest with you. I mean, they don't bring any other waterfowl up. I'd really like if they just left them in their cage. Um, but yeah, it probably would help. It probably would help for sure. Um,
I
yeah,
always think it's better if there's a gap between the chickens and the bantam duck. And sometimes that happens just because they have to have 7 cages and they can get 8 up there. If there's a space between the call duck and the bantams, I think they do a lot better in my mind. Now, call ducks aren't near as bad as Indies. Indies go crazy when you move them, and that's a whole nother discussion. But the call ducks tend to come back as long as they're not right on a chicken and they're not trying to fight with it or get in its feet or whatever. But I think if there's a space between them, that kind of helps in my mind. But I'm like with Mike. Sometimes when they're right next to a chicken, they're over there fighting with the chicken, or they're just not used to being around one or whatever, and they kind of get that scrunched up look to them.
it probably would help. I don't. I'd never really contemplated doing that. I'm glad you brought that up. But
Trying
That's
to
what
help,
he
buddy.
always says. Because I always tell him, like, God damn, that duck looked really good back there when I was judging it. Now I got it up front, and I'm not real happy with it. But they, like I said, they have to settle down into their station, and unless they do that, there's not much sense looking at them until they get to that point. So
yeah, and sometimes they don't ever get to that point. You're right. So yeah, it would probably help putting a chicken next to them once in a while so they calm down. Um, for sure. But like I said, I prefer that they either, if it's a 2 day show, that they make sure to get them up there on Saturday to
yeah,
give
they
them a
got a little
chance to
time.
settle down. Um, on a single day show, I'd prefer that they didn't even bring them up; they just left them in their cage. But I haven't been to a ton of single day shows this year, so haven't had that issue. So
All right. Just a thought. Just trying to help you out. I mean, I'm just as happy when I'm showing that you leave the damn things right up there with me. You put them right next to the coaching if you want to, because I want to whoop you.
yeah, I mean it's nice to have them up there. I mean everybody gets to see your duck, but it doesn't help them when they're running around and not
They're kind of
showing. So
unique too because they actually compete for champion bantam. So we almost have to have them up there
yeah,
if we're going to do the ABA thing and do it that way.
yeah, that part gets complicated for a lot of people. So that's another factor I think kind of sometimes doesn't help them is having to just go through all that mess. And so, but yeah, the main thing is I'm not settling down like a chicken would settle down or show properly.
Well, we
Um,
have our problems with chickens too. So when
Oh
they
yeah,
go up
yeah.
front, so
Some of them die on Champion Row on a 2 day, and some are better at 1 day. So I guess it's probably evens itself out in the long run.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm just always happy if I have one up there. So,
yeah,
it's a blessing in itself just to get one up there. I mean, to win the whole show, there's only one person can win the whole show. So, it's just a blessing to get one
yeah,
up there.
yep. That's the place you want to be. That's
Yep.
why we. That's part of the reason to go is to
Well, and
see what you can do that day.
I tell a lot of people, and I did this, and I still do it at every show I go to. I go up, particularly on the call ducks, and I look at the bird that's up there in that cage, and I did it forever and a day. I go up and look at that bird and burn that image in my head as to what that bird looked like, so that I would get a good idea. Because you go to a champion row at pretty much every big poultry show, and you're going to see consistency across. I think the judges do a really good job of being consistent in what they pick. And if you look at a bantam duck at pretty much every big show, they're going to look pretty much the same. Um, so,
Yep.
um,
And trouble is that to go back in the aisle, there's another 45 of them that look almost exactly alike them on a big show. So I mean,
Yeah,
you take the win, you take it,
yeah, and
and you're happy.
I tell everybody, they get upset, but when you're judging them, that bird's got to do his thing right away.
Yep.
And if he
Yep.
doesn't do his thing right away, and back to what we were talking about earlier, a judge can get lost in a class of these things, and you just got to go with what's showing itself at the time. I mean, I'm gonna eventually be a judge here. I'll face the same dilemma. You judge what's in front of you, and if it doesn't
Yep.
do what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it, then it's not its day.
I tend to with those, especially in the big classes of whites. It's easier to judge the colored ones because they've got other faults, and but whites are tough because there's not a whole lot you can cut them for in color. But I tend to mark the tags before I ever get any farther. So if I got 20 old drakes, I'll walk down through there and there's 2 or 3 of them that really catch my eye, a couple of iffy ones, and there's some I just don't like. Period.
Yep.
I get them weeded out that way. So then when I got the time, I can focus on those ones that I really like, and I can kind of poke them with a stick or whatever I need to do to get them to where I think they need to be. Um, I always hate like for picking best white. And you've seen me do this a bunch. I will try to find 4 cages and maybe 8 cages and move them and space them out one every other cage and then go away for about 10 minutes and then come back because I like to see them when I'm picking best of variety, especially in whites. I like to see all 4 classes together. I don't like to run down an aisle and then go around the corner and because in your mind you can't compare that way real well. So I do like to have them right next to each other or close in proximity to each other and let them settle back down. And I think you do a better job judging them that way than trying to pick them out of the rows when you got like a Columbus where you might have 200 whites, 200 or 300 whites, and you got to run through 4 aisles to find the old drake, the young drake, the old hen, and the young hen. I just like to have them all together. That way I can see them, and I actually like to do that when I go for best of breed as well if I've got the time to do it.
Yeah, and that's fair because they all get moved, so they all have the same equal shot to settle
Yes.
down and go. So yeah,
And
that's always a
the
good thing.
secret is not to move them and then jump right into judging them. You got to go away for a little bit, and we'll go
Yeah,
smoke a cigar or go get a cup of coffee, come back and let them settle down a little bit. And then I know then if it settles down to the way I seen it when I walked down through there the first time, then that duck's got the right station, the right stance. I don't have to worry about him going any farther. So that's just a tip that I use and I've learned because that was not my best class when I first started. And Louis and several of them have helped me over the years. And Lou Horton, Lou Cunningham, Art Lundgren, a lot of them have helped me get that process in my mind and what I did wrong and what I didn't do right. So it's a learning thing. You just don't jump right in and be a hell of a judge of call ducks unless that's all you've ever raised before you ever started.
yeah, they're something else. But I'm sure, like I'll feel the same way when I eventually become a judge and I got to do a bunch of old English. It'd be the same deal. You gotta just figure
Yeah,
out a
you
good
get
Oh, they're
system
your
for
easy.
them.
the good thing
They're
is
easy.
you get your strengths and weaknesses and if you're a smart judge you go work on them ones you're not so good on and don't dread them. I think I've told it on here a million times. I used to just dearly hate to do medium ducks because number one I didn't like them and I didn't like nothing about anything in that class other than maybe a crested, and I had to go work on buff ducks and cayugas because I couldn't have told you one from another. I know what the standard says, but when we used to have classes of 50 cayugas. They all look alike to me. So to get the fine points and those things, it's whatever you figure you're weak on, then go work on that. And
Yeah,
you'll believe me, you'll find enough people after you've judged them and screwed them up a couple times that will definitely help you on your process.
yeah, for sure.
That's one way to put it.
I did it with moderns too. I butchered a couple classes of those, and so my old friends got me off to the side, and then I ended up starting liking the little devils after I got to know a little more about them. So
Yeah, it
it's
definitely helps
it's a
about the
shame we're not all born with the ability to judge everything correctly, but you're always going to have judges that are better on some things than others.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I eventually become a judge, I want to be a good overall judge. Um, I do enjoy waterfowl, and there's not a lot of waterfowl judges out there, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the reasons why I went APA first, because I'd like to judge waterfowl and more than just Bantam ducks. So I know
Right.
waterfowl is becoming really popular, and there's not a ton of waterfowl judges out there. So
Yeah, it's actually a hot one, and that's kind of our focus at some of these shows with some of the better waterfowl judges as they go along behind them. I know we did with Jacob and Nate Reinish at Dayton, just to get their opinions on the classes and what they thought, because you just don't get a lot of that information. It's not like they wrote a ton of books on Toulouse and Africans and Cayugas, and I think one of the greatest things that Jake Wilson did was that I watched that seminar that he did up there in Ontario, and then they actually did a video of it, and that's great for somebody that don't know anything about Welsh Harlequins. When he started with them, I had to go read up on them, and I had seen them a few times before that, so it happened to be a breed I was fairly familiar with. But I think he did a good job at explaining that breed to people that don't know anything about it. So hopefully we can do some more of that.
yeah, for sure. I definitely like that. I know this summer I did a couple seminars for the Call Duck Club. We had a Call Duck seminar, and I did one for Don Karasik at Wisconsin. And people love when you get up there and kind of show things to them. And it was really nice. I know at Wisconsin, Donnie had like 62 or 63 kids signed up for that. It was that whole thing was packed with people eager to hear about call ducks. So it was really nice. But you're right. It's good for some of the more experienced breeders to get out there and talk and show people about the breeds so they can understand them better, including the judges.
And I think you're lucky at this stage of the game, because when we started as a very competitive class, and that wasn't a very friendly class, I think the call duck breeders you have out there nowadays are very receptive in helping everybody get to where they need to get, and they're not hoarding stuff and not hoarding secrets or whatever you want to call it. They're very willing. I know Don does with the seminars. And Art's very. If you ask Art a question, he'll answer any question you have. Dustin Wilson, several of the ones that are out there that do very well at call ducks are not afraid to share their knowledge. It may not be exactly how we do it or you do it, but at least they're telling you how they do it, and I think that's a benefit.
Yeah, it's been a real benefit. Now there's some really good people in the call duck breeders that do share knowledge. I'll share all the knowledge in the world with people. If they, I talk to people. I love talking about call ducks, and particularly I really like talking about hatching for people because I know I had a terrible time, and it took me like 3 years, and most people would have quit by then. I don't think people would. Most people won't go 3 years. They'd have just gotten rid of them. But I was determined that I was going to be able to hatch a call duck. So I can go into that a little bit because I know a lot of people
Go.
like to hear about
Go.
hatching them. So the one thing I know, I heard you talking earlier about the voodoo we do with them, but it's basically trying to mimic what a wild duck does. And so wild ducks, they're water ducks. So when the mama duck is on her egg, she's going to go off usually and get a bath every day. And when she leaves, that egg's going to cool down. And then when she comes back, her, on her side's a little bit wet. So when she gets on them eggs, they're going to get a little jolt of moisture into them. So basically, that's what I try to mimic, and that's basically what I got from Art Longren is, the cooling and the misting of the eggs is seems to be pretty important. The one thing I will say, I was hand turning the eggs when I used the redwood incubator, and I did it 3 times a day, and then I would mist them every other day for the first 18 days. Now I just use room temperature water. We have well water, so I either put a little bit of bleach or a little bit of oxine in the water to make sure it doesn't get any bacteria in it. But I would mist them every other day through day 18, and then after day 18, I'd mist them every day all the way till day 23, and then that's when they would go in the hatcher, and I hand turned them 3 times a day. Um, I also cool them after day 10. And the cooling, it depends on what the temperature is, where I'm cooling them. If in the early spring, they might only be out 10 minutes. I kind of just feel them to make sure they cool down some. And then usually when I'm going to mist, I mist on that last turn of the day. But um, I think what's really important in the turning of the eggs is that it's consistent in time. Um, I tried to do it, every 8 hours. So fortunately, April's home, so she can turn eggs in the middle of the day for me. But I think there a lot of the if you're consistent in what you do is really important. So I think that helps. The other thing, these new hatching time incubators that have come out now, I've started using that with the call ducks, and I've found that I only have to turn them once a day in that. I got the 180 with the half tube that goes side to side. I tried doing them like chickens laying on their side, and that didn't work. The embryos stuck to the side and the hatches were pretty crappy. But I found if I turn them once a day, then that seemed to make all the difference in the world. So,
And over. Yep.
and I just end over end on them. I don't rotate them to the side. Now, when I had them in a redwood, I'd rotate them twice a day and then end over end for the last turn. And the other thing that is kind of weird, but in the old redwood, I got the Lee favorites, and they got those wire racks in there, so I can keep that egg with that air cell a little bit tipped up. And if you lay them on their side and don't have them tipped up, you get a lot of problems with them hatching on the wrong end. They try to pip on the wrong end. So I
Yep.
kind of do the same thing in the hatching time. I can put 5 eggs in that tray, and I'll have them with the air sac kind of tilted up a little bit. So I think that makes a bit of a difference. Depending on the size of the eggs, they do roll a little bit in those hatching times, but I haven't seen any issues with it. And I still I know the hatching times have like a cooldown feature, but I don't set just a single batch in there. So I still
Yeah,
follow the same misting.
that's exactly the problem with that is it's all right if you could fill it up once and let it go the whole time. But if you're like me, you're rotating every week, you're rotating another batch in there, and it just kind of, I was never able to. And number one, you have to be like a computer programmer to figure out how to set that up because it's not the
Yeah.
easiest thing in the world. I know Dustin did it with his, but do you have the tray hatching time or the rollers?
I got it's the 180 with the individual trays where they kind of they turn side to side.
Yeah, they tilt.
Um,
So
yeah, they
you've
tilt.
got one of the advantages to it over a GQF in my mind is you've got a steeper tilt to that than what you do in a GQF. So I think a GQF's
Yeah.
probably on a 45. This is probably at a 50. It's got a steeper angle. I know Mike just used one this year. Yeah, I guess it was this year. Um, I've had people tell me with call ducks they've used the roller models, and I'm just wondering. As you say about the embryo sticking to the side, that's common with geese. If you don't watch how you roll the goose eggs when you're hand turning, and you keep getting them on the same, they'll stick to that one side and they don't develop as well. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering with those roller hatching times because I've never used one of those. If those would be better for call ducks.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but like I said, the angle that they turn in that one is steeper than a GQF, and I keep them somewhat on their side, but they're tilted up a little bit. And then
Yep, they
when
go.
I turn them end on over end, so I know for sure that that
It's
embryo is
not going
going to
to do
move.
that.
Yeah, it's going to turn. So, and I had pretty good luck with that.
Well, I
Um,
think your advantage on those, and I say this, and I've said it since day one. You can have any other kind of incubator. I had humidaires, I had Leahys, I had Brincias. The humidity is second to none in that hatching time. If you put a calibrated thermometer, hydrometer in there, I don't care where you put that in that incubator. It's the same temperature and the same humidity over that whole thing. Whereas the other ones, you got variations from top to bottom and side to back and all that. Those things are even all the way through it. Just the way they're designed. So I think that helps a lot with your hatch percentage.
yeah, for sure. They are nice and consistent, and yeah, they're spot on. I mean, it's just amazing how well they run. So, um,
Well, we're an
mm,
affiliate, so we definitely have sold a lot of incubators this week since it's getting to be that
yeah,
holiday time. But
yeah, we bought a few a few of those
that's what
tabletop
April
ones.
said. You give us a review here in a while after you've used those little ones because not everybody can throw out $1,000 for an incubator that's starting in the hobby, and we need that $150 to $200 range incubator that's worth that much money and actually performs. And I'm hoping that this fits the bill. I know Mike had bought one, and Emily has one too. From where was that from? Like Sure Right, that little one.
It's from down in Texas. The
Yeah,
guys in Texas,
Sure Right,
they
or
make
Hatch Right or something. And
uh,
it wasn't bad. It was a little tricky to get
Right
it.
Farms.
Yeah, Right Farms, to get it set up and get the alarms to not go off all the time. And she had some success with hatching in that. I think it's always better to have a separate hatcher and a separate incubator and not try to do it all in one. Although for years I did, it was always just a mess. With having a separate incubator and a separate hatcher, you can kind of contain that hatching mess, and I think it ups your percentage in the long run because you're not contaminating your setter.
Yeah, I don't think you can really have a ton of success using the same machine to hatch and incubate in. I mean, for one, I do raise the humidity up when I'm going to hatch. So right there, you almost absolutely need two machines. And so I run on the hatching time usually between 50 and, well, I set it on about 53%. And then for hatching, I'll raise it another 10% when I'm going to hatch. Um, I have not hatched in the hatching time though, call bucks. I've still hatched them in a traditional incubator. Now the one thing that I do that helped, and I got this from Todd Spidell years ago. I have those Inkbird humidity controllers
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
the 4 quart reptile zoo misters, and they work
Yep.
really good on all your machines for humidity control. They're not as good as hatching or the hatching time, but you can keep your humidity pretty well locked in and not have to fool with those. So it's
We
not a
use
real
those in
super.
the Yeah, we use those in the humidaires and the Leahys when we had them, didn't we, Mike? Um,
Yep.
the problem with them, and it's that technology. So whenever you've got heat-based humidity, you got fluctuation in temperature and humidity. Why I promote and like the hatching times, it's not heat-based humidity, it's sonicated-based humidity, so that humidity is not dependent on your temperature. So I think that's why you get a little more even. Even in the humidaires, they use that heat bar on the front, and if that thing ever runs out of water, you're cooking eggs. And you had to be very careful with that. But it's not a steady, even with those ink birds, it wasn't a steady humidity like the hatching time is. I think they've got it down. They mimic that just like and that was one of their big selling points when they first come out, is they mimic a commercial incubator.
Yeah, eventually I'd like to get a hatcher. But like I said, we got the big 180 and then we got these two tabletops. So I would definitely like to have a hatcher. So, but I'd had pretty good luck with the other machine. So it's kind of one of them deals where I didn't really want to spend the money.
Yeah, spend the
But
money. And well, Mike, up until what? Like, I think you still use a redwood hatcher, don't you?
Yeah. When I have a bunch, I hatched right in the hatching time this year. They I mean I hatched at 92%, uh using just putting them in the same incubator,
On the
hatching
bottom.
in incubators. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I mean it's
chickens.
dirtier. I don't like it as well. I would never do it with ducks, but I still use a redwood if I've got like half the incubator in one thing or better. Well, then they're going when it's time they go over to a redwood hatchery.
yeah, I like the redwoods. I have a Dickies I can use for hatching also. That Dickies does a pretty good job. Um, but I do prefer the redwood. I mean, they hold moisture really well. And the one I have has a really nice consistent temperature on it, so it does pretty good. And then I know this will be probably kind of controversial, but I will help them hatch out if need be. I prefer that they hatch on their own, but I will help them hatch out. But there's a kind of a limitation to that. The duck's got to do part of the job and get, you know, probably half to 3/4 of the way out. Sometimes they just don't get through that membrane. That's another important thing people need to know is getting them into the hatcher on time because they need those 3 days for that membrane to soften up enough to be able to get through it. If not, it's like leather. So it's really important that your timing is good on that. You can't get them in late. If you get them in late, then you're going to be fighting getting them to hatch out. And but I will help them if they need. But I kind of value the ones that hatch on their own, and I'd probably say 75% of mine do hatch on their own. So, and I don't, you learn something from everything, and I enjoyed the one with Dustin Wilson, and the thing about the bill placement really made sense
It
on what he
did.
Yeah.
talked
I
about.
was just going to say that because I think that might be some of the problems with how a couple things in my mind from having them and being frustrated with them. If they lay that golf ball round egg, that's going to always be a problem. They need to lay an egg that has an actual oblong shape to it that has an air cell. When you get that, this is what's problem with Cornish and a couple other breeds. The rounder that egg, the harder it is to hatch. So I believe that with a passion, and I think. But when he said that bill thing, it started clicking to me because I thought, well, that's it. There's got to be a genetic factor that they're not getting out of the eggs because Mike hatched magpie ducks up at his place in the windowsill, and we didn't do nothing special to them. There was no misting, there was no cooling, there was just throw them in the incubator, throw them in the hatcher, and every one of them hatches. So I think
Matter
it's
of fact, they sat in the same trays as the chicken. They were straight up and down. Never laid him down, didn't do anything. One time I set 40, got 39. And next time I set 35 and got 35. So, hey,
yeah. So
Yeah,
I think some of it there's a genetic factor there that he
yeah,
brought up, and I think you're exactly right there. I think
yeah,
we've
for sure.
bred them to an extreme to where they just have a hard time getting out physically.
Yeah, I mean, because I've had ones with really nice short, wide bills, and they have no problems hatching. Um, Yet now, so I don't think it's the bill length, but I think it definitely is that bill placement on that face.
it's the angle.
Yeah, if it's that angle, it makes perfect sense. So, um, but so that's kind of what I do for the hatching and that part of it. Um, the other thing too, I don't breed from a lot of old ducks. I don't keep breeders unless they're really special ones around. I'd say the average age for my breeders is probably 3 and under for the bulk of them. I'm constantly rotating new birds that I raise in. I mean, that's the whole goal of everybody is to replace the breeders with better ones that you raise. And so I do believe you can let your flock get old in a hurry, and that'll cause you some problems,
And I
particularly in the
think that's
females.
other than maybe geese, that's a common thread in ducks. I think that the older they get, that they're not better breeders. And I had geese that were 10, 12 years old, still laying and producing. But I think with ducks, I don't think they have as long a production span as what some of the other birds do.
Yeah, particularly the females. I think the males can go longer, but the females usually 2 to 3 years, and they're probably moving on their way. Like I said, unless they're really special. But like I said, you can let your flock grow old really fast on you, and then you'll be in trouble. You need to be rotating young ones in, and displacing the older ones. And ideally, that's through you know you're breeding and you're raising better quality ones to knock
Yep.
the older ones out. If you're not doing that, then that's kind of a key that what you're doing is not working.
And I
So
think some of that problem was focusing on show traits and not production. So I don't think for many years they've actually been bred for production. They've bred from the best show type ducks. So I think that's something you got to pay attention to in everything. And sometimes we let that get away just because we get. Mike can tell you years ago I had partridge Wyandottes. They were beautiful. I raised 4 chicks one year, 3 best of shows and 1 reserve show, but that hen laid 4 eggs, and I just got frustrated with the lack of productivity. Number one, not that the birds were bad that I got out of them. It's just they didn't produce like they should. And I think you can breed yourself right into the hole when you don't focus on those production capabilities that they need to have as a breeder.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. You can get ones that don't lay and you can't keep them around. You need to get ones that are going to lay and you're going to be able to hatch babies out of them. And you don't have a long laying season to begin with, and if you got one you're getting nothing out of, then you're not going to make any progress out of that. The other thing that I rarely do is put the same pair back together again. I've never really had a habit of that. Last year was the first time that I did that, and the reason I did it is I had a real problem the year before. I We had that god awful heat the last summer and the one before, and I lost a bunch of ducklings, and I lost a bunch out of a pair. So some of them that survived turned out really nice. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put that pair together again, and they really turned out nice this year. So I was kind of happy I did that. But as a general rule, I won't put same pair back together again. I'll switch them up. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it's worked for me.
I think there's two schools of thought there. Personally, I'm always trying to fix some little thing with whatever I'm doing. So if I do the same thing I did the year before, I'm probably not going to fix what I wanted to fix. So I tend to move them around in families a little bit more. To if this one's got a better comb, I'm going to use it over this one. So I think you're on the right thought process there, because you're not out to just produce a bunch of ducks. You want to improve them every year, and you're probably not going to do that making the same matings over and over and over.
No. And then the other thing is, I don't like trios. I will do trios, but I really don't like trios, and especially on call ducks, because the breeding season is so short. And if you put a trio together, then it'll take you forever to figure out what you have. If you get something really good out of it, then you're stuck keeping that trio together. And it's hard to prove which one was the parents. I mean, you know who the dad is, but you don't know who the mom is. So you can you can spin your wheels for basically 3 years trying to figure out what you got there. So I'm not a fan of trios for
I never
sure.
never did it too much in waterfowl for that reason, like you're saying. And if I did do it, it was two sisters, so I knew they were from the same line or family. And with that male duck, so the all the ducklings out of that pen were going to be similar anyways. But I think if you do two completely different females from two different lines over a male, you're going to have problems, because you're not going to know which one produced what. So
Yeah.
definitely probably stud mating and call ducks. I know I did it with Indies, and the call ducks I had was just this male and that female, because then I'd have better pedigree.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I like doing pairs on them. And wouldn't say I won't do a trio, but there'd have to be a good reason for it. So I do prefer pairs. I don't uh I don't like the ducks. I let them go on natural light. I'm not a big fan of trying to get them going with lights. Um, I like it to be as natural as possible. So that's the other
Yeah,
thing
I
is I'm
think
kind
you'll
of
have better hatchability and fertility if you don't force them. I think that's some of our problems. We try to force them out of their natural mating seasons just so we get birds out early. It's in chickens and in ducks both. But I know years ago when I had Pomeranian geese, I had a damn dawn to dusk light, and those sons of guns would lay in January because they were under that light all night long. So they had, constant. That's where they go in at night to sleep, was under that dawn to dusk light, and it messed them up because they'd be laying in January and the eggs would freeze. And then when it finally got to spring, when I wanted to hatch them, yeah, I wasn't getting any fertility or any eggs then because they'd already laid themselves out. So I think you're right with that point, is they need to go their own little cycle, and don't light them and don't force them.
yeah, no, I don't think it works out that good. And I mean, you can get babies out in April. Normally they'll start laying depending on the weather in late March, early April. And you can get birds that are ready for the later fall shows. They grow just fine. You'll see many good cockerels and pullets that are April hatches in these big fall shows. They look just fine. They grow perfectly well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now the one bad part, whites are easy. The colored birds are really tough though, because lately we've been getting really hot summers, and they get those colored males to color in time is just a challenge. So I don't know how to get around that, but um,
Yeah, that's a tough one there. I don't know that you're going to fix it. They tend to look good in December. So if you
Yeah.
can go to Knoxville, that's the place to show them, I guess.
Yeah, the one thing that I have noticed is it seems like if you get them broke up and separated earlier, particularly for the colored males, that they seem to be able to put more focus into molting and not trying to still breed. So I do try to get them broke up, as soon as they start going into a molt, which is usually when your first heat comes. I just get them broke up, and that way they can just focus on not be stressed and strained from breeding. I think that does help a little bit.
Yep, all I have to worry about is eating and drinking then. Yep.
Yeah. At least
All
that's
right,
the
but
way I feel about it, but I don't know if
that's
that's
us
true or
eating and
not.
drinking. Any questions you got for him here towards the end? What's your favorite? I guess I asked April this before she left. What's your favorite thing about the hobby since you started, and where do you think we can improve?
I'll be honest with you. My favorite part of it is the friendship and the camaraderie. I have just a blast sitting in them hotel lobbies on Saturday night, talking and laughing. And I think so many people would have more fun in this hobby if they experienced that. There's no more fun than at these poultry shows on Saturday night. All the stuff we talk about and the fun we have, and the things we learn. So that is what I really like about it. Um, the thing I
Ken,
don't
weren't
like,
you in the lobby? Were you in the lobby with me at Arkansas
for sure.
with us?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah,
that was a good one.
that was
that
a
was a
good
good one, wasn't it? That was a great one.
that was a great one. That was a great
Yeah.
one. That
Yep.
was.
Yep.
And you'll have to edit this part out, but the one person I saw one of the people we were talking about and I just busted out laughing at a show a couple weeks later. And so but yeah, no, that's what I really enjoy. And I think people would get way more out of it if they just could
Yes.
slow down and enjoy that piece of it. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of these 1 day shows, and especially a 1 day double show. I just am not a super fan of that, but that's
It's
what
a
I
whole
really
lot of work,
enjoy.
isn't it?
It is, and what I think a lot of people don't realize is the judges like to have fun too. And I've been clerking for these clerking assignments, and man, by the end of the day, you didn't get to talk to anybody. You just looked at
Nope.
chickens or ducks all day long, and you'd like to enjoy time with your poultry friends too. And if it's
Yep.
a 1 day show and you're all gone, that doesn't happen. So I really enjoy, you know, the camaraderie on Saturday night.
Yep.
That's the part I really like about it. And I like meeting new people and talking about our breed and chickens in general. Um,
Yep.
the things I think we could do to improve it, um, I don't know. I've been a big advocate for years about making it easier for all the shows to be a little bit standardized. And I really would like to see if it was the APA or the ABA come together, and we talked about this before, with like one package for all these clubs so we could standardize things a little bit more, as far as the paperwork and the coop tags. And every show has different coop tags. Some are handwritten and you can't read them, and all the clerking sheets are so all over the place with some of them are better than others, but it'd be nice if we could get one package together.
It's kind
um,
of like we're talking about the 88 counties in Ohio all doing their own thing. So we did standardize the show report. So the basic show report goes to the APA, and then Norma sends it on to the ABA. So that's all in one spot, and it's one form. So you don't have to write it out twice. So that was one improvement. But we
yeah,
have worked on a software program, to manage a show with several different people, and we just haven't come up with the right thing yet. So it's
yeah,
that's not like we haven't tried to do it, but it's like some people like this one, some people like that one, and there's one up in Wisconsin. Wisconsin International uses one called Show Commander, which a guy wrote. That is very efficient, probably does everything we need to do, but it's just expensive. And most
yeah,
of these shows are on a real tight budget. I think if they thought about it and seen how much time it would save them. It's probably worth a quarter a bird or whatever it is that guy charges to put the program out. But we tried to get that as an official show program and recommend it and got voted down. So um, I think hopefully it's in the progress. Somebody will come up with one, but there's definitely a market for a nice show program that all of these shows can use. And it would be nice if we could, have APA or ABA sponsor that program and say, here's what you need to use. And it will help you manage your show more efficiently, save you time and save you effort and paperwork.
Yeah, it would save money too on mailing things around because you could eventually do it electronically and with the show
Uh,
report, so it's cut down on postage.
Definitely need to move away from the postal system. All the horror stories I've heard the last year of entries not getting there, and all kinds of stuff with the shipping of chicks and eggs and birds. It's just we need to move away to a more electronic system to where we don't have to worry about the post office. And there's no sense in not doing that. We got it. We did it in the late '90s at Columbus. It was we did a online entry and an email thing, and the problem there was the credit card fees got so high that it wasn't feasible to keep doing it. But I think in this day and age, there's definitely a market for a good program that does everything we need to do. I know in the pigeon hobby, we have several of those. So.
Yeah, that's where I go back to the racing pigeon. We had that years ago with the American Racing Pigeon Union. They had one
Yep.
package out for all clubs, and everything was standardized, and it was just so much easier. And you could, this was back in the '90s. You could send things electronically. Because in this day and age, I would much prefer to do an entry online
Yep.
and instead of mailing it, because then it went in, and it's so much easier. And I think in this day and age, so many people are way more comfortable with that. It's gotten pretty accepted, so would definitely make it easier for people to do it. And then I know it's stressful for show secretaries, but it would allow you to push your deadlines out a little bit later. And I think
Yep.
sometimes you might get more birds that way, because if you got to send an entry in a month or 45 days ahead of time, I don't think people enter as many birds because they're not sure what they're going to have. And
Yeah.
the closer to the deadline, they probably would pick up some more birds out of it. That's just my
And I
thought.
think if the program and you could print your cards, your coop tags, and everything from the same program, and it print them in order, you could do all that. It doesn't matter how many days. I mean, if you've got 2,000 entries and you just keep your ink up and have your card stock or whatever you're going to do, and it would put them out and it could correlate them. You could hand them and they could go hang the tags instead of
Yeah.
there's the tags, you're cutting the tags, and you got to go back through them and you got to cut them apart. And then when you cut them apart, you got to get your classes. So there you got all your classes. And then you got to go make sure that entry 31 and exhibitor 42 and exhibitor 66 and then another 31. You can't do that. So you then got to shuffle all the cards together to make sure they're in an order. It would be a tremendous time saver.
For sure. For sure. Because
And
there's
then
no worse
and,
thing.
no, and then your clerking, your clerking slips come out. They correlate with everything else. So all you got to do is circle the damn thing. This one was first, best of right, whatever. But it's all on there, and I think that's a hell of a lot better than. I mean, when you go and you get a blank piece of paper, which a lot of shows we've been to, and it's a blank piece of paper, and the clerk's got to write all the shit in. Well, they don't have time to really clerk either. They can't go in front of you and count how many's in there and correlate it because they don't know.
Yeah. No, I've definitely seen that. I've done a bunch of clerking this year, and I've seen some are better
Oh
than
yeah.
others, and some of them are just a nightmare. And yeah,
Mhm.
it really does make it hard. And then I think it kind of hurts them because when they put the coop tags on, they get birds out of order, and that really makes it tough.
Yes.
So for a judge, for a clerk, for everybody involved, there's no worse thing than to get the birds out of order or get them cooped in separate spots, and that's just terrible.
Oh, yeah, believe me. That
Well, we
run all
are.
over
I
has
know
been
we
fun.
are definitely working on that, and we just haven't found the right program and the right vendor yet. But I have faith that somebody that's a computer genius, maybe some of these juniors need to need to write one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Write
I
it,
mean,
test it out.
the other thing I would tell people is when you're at the shows, talk to people, talk to the breeders, find out who the breeders are, and go talk to them.
Yeah.
Most of them are very approachable and love talking about their breeds, and that's where you're going to have your most fun at these shows is talking people, meeting new people. Um,
Yep.
and it seems like the shows are up in numbers, so there's plenty of people to see, plenty of people to talk to. All the shows I
Absolutely.
went through this year, there were lots of people, lots of birds, lots to talk about.
Yeah.
So I know
Definitely
April and I
have,
are,
lots of new people. I know Mike and I were amazed at Columbus just from doing this little podcast of how many people come up to us that, and if I look at that list, I probably don't know a third of them on there, where it used to be years ago I knew everyone on there. So we got lots of new people, and get them exposed and get them exposed in the right way, I guess, is the secret.
Yeah, you got to get them excited and you got to develop that passion. You have the passion for it, then you can put up with any kind of shit that rolls down the line if you got passion for what you're doing. If you're just doing it to do it, well, then you ain't doing nothing.
yeah, and I think the other thing that a lot of people need to realize is this whole hobby is about advancing the breeds and making the breeds better and
Yes.
you know pushing them along, and I always say leave them better than when I got them. And it's people get so focused on winning, and everybody loves to win. I like to win, but at the end
Yep.
of the day, it's about advancing the breed. And when you can see some of these breeds like call ducks, I mean, they're so daggone competitive, and they're so competitive because you have so many good breeders out there that are pushing them forward. And I gotta believe as a judge, sometimes it's really fun to judge them. It's hard, but there's so many good ones, and I think that is really good. And that goes for all the breeds of chickens and ducks and other waterfowl out there, is to keep the focus on it's all about building the perfect specimen. And that's what the focus should be, not on winning, not on chasing points, not on I won or I did this. It's make the birds better and focus on what the standard says. What is the purpose of the bird? And, you know, that's what I would like everybody to keep focused on is this whole hobby is about building a better bird.
And building relationships with other people.
For sure. Because yeah, that's true too. Because I'll tell you, I have some really good, poultry friends, and we help each other. We share birds,
Yes.
we send good birds to each other, and definitely for all the breeders out there, you have to get good birds out to people. If you want to keep them in this hobby, you have to get good birds out to them. You can't sell them crap because if you do, they're not going
Yep.
to make any progress.
Yep.
Again, it's about advancing the breed. And if you get good birds out to people, it'll advance the breed and it'll make you work harder. Because if you want to win, you got to work harder and
Yeah,
breed
you
smarter.
definitely have to work. Yes, you have to work. It's just not all pick up the trophy and go home because you bought a something somewhere for some exorbitant price. You know, raise something.
Yeah. And there's no better feeling than winning with a bird you bred.
Yep.
And then
Absolutely not.
winning with a bird who you bred the parents and you bred the grandparents and you bred the grandparents'
Yeah,
grandparents. That's when it really
yeah,
gets fun.
yeah.
Um,
And you know what you started with. You know that
yeah,
Yep.
that's the good part. You start with shit, and all of a sudden you got a hunk of gold. That's pretty cool. That's
yep,
pretty cool.
I think I've told this story before, but I laughed. There was one a coach and breeder told me one time that they were going to beat that white cockerel we had. I said, well, which one? I said, we got 20 of them and we never showed the same one twice. So which one are you going to beat? So that's when you know you've kind of made it, when you got enough of them that you can put a different one in there every week and they all think it's the same one.
yeah, yeah. And that's another thing a lot of people don't realize is when you start going to a lot of shows, you need more than one bird. You need multiple
Yep.
birds to make it
Oh,
through a show season because they
yeah.
get tired of being on the they get tired of being on the road too.
Yes,
And
they do.
you can't just have one or two of them if
No,
you're going to go to a lot of shows.
no, that's exactly right. And time when you're going, and time which one you're aiming for, and
Yep.
hatch for a certain show, and then you do okay, and you do okay, but when you hit it right, that's a great feeling.
Yep.
That's a great feeling. So,
All right. Well, we better let Ken get to his supper and get out of here. And
yep.
I can't think of anything else. Anything else you want to say, Ken, before we go? Excuse
No,
the
thank
black
you.
box there. We lost his video a while back, so we're just going with the audio.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for doing this. I mean, I really appreciate and I'm honored for being on here. Um, it's a great thing both of you are doing, and I hope everybody gets a little bit of something out of each and every one of these things. And if anybody has any questions, I'm always eager to talk about call bucks. You can message me, or if you see me at a show and I'm not busy, just come up. I love talking about call ducks.
Sounds good.
Excellent. That sounds
Happy
good. Remember, we're
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, and we are sponsored by Roger Poultry Supply, Eagles Nest Hatchery, an affiliate of Hatching Time Products. Click it and go and like, subscribe, and share. Comment. Hell, comment. That's it. I'm done. Ken, it's been a pleasure.
All right, thank you. Have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving to you both.
Thank you.
Yep.
You too.